Morning! It's currently about 10 to 8 on Saturday morning, which is like 10 minutes earlier than I usually even wake up on a Saturday. But I got up at 6 o'clock this morning because I'm going to go and pick up my friend and we're going to go on a road trip to 66 Book Club, which is a massive warehouse that usually only sells books to like bookshops and chain stores, and then once a month they open their doors to the public. And this weekend is the one time in February that they are opening their doors, and to make it even better, it's 80% off everything in the warehouse, and that's books that are already at wholesale prices. So I'm going to try not to go too mad, but I mean, come on. So yeah, I'm gonna go and pick up my friend and we're gonna go.
Honestly, the alarm goes off and I'm like, no, it's snooze time, and then they go back to sleep.
Oh, right.
Just wait until it goes off again. So they look at me hoping, and then they're like, no.
I didn't go crazy. Bought 12 books. I don't think that, I expected my lack of self-restraint to mean that I came away with more, but we did good. I mean, one of the reasons I didn't buy as many as I thought I would was just the sheer amount of people at 66 Book Club this time around. I think everyone saw the TikTok that I saw that talked about 66 Book Club, and everyone decided to go this weekend. And let me just preface it by saying that the 66 Book Club is a really good idea. I bought all of these 12 books, which probably totaled to around about 120 something pounds, and I spent £26 on them. So there is nothing really to complain about other than the fact that it took us 2 hours to get there, which is not the bookshop's fault. I live 2 hours away. I then waited. Me and my friend then queued for 2 hours to get in, and queued for another hour after we'd gone through and picked our books to pay. So just because of the sheer number of people and the fact that it is a warehouse means that it's not organised with what I think is any it's not organised the way a bookshop is organised, because it's there for the people who work there, 9 to 5 every day, who are going to go and pick the books to send off to the bookshops. It's not there for people to browse the shelves, which meant that there was no organisation that I could see. There clearly was an organisation way for people who probably have just, you need to go here, here and here and pick these things. But yeah, there was also a lot less, there was almost no fantasy books that I could see, very little sci-fi. There was a lot of non-fiction, recipe books and things like that. So I feel like this is a warehouse that caters to W.H. Smiths as opposed to Waterstones, which, if you don't live in the UK, you may not understand the difference. Basically, W.H. Smiths when I was younger, I used to consider it a bookshop. Now I feel like it's a stationery shop that kind of has some books in it sometimes, whereas W.H. Smiths is a bookshop. Anyway, I didn't film a lot when I was in there. I was planning on doing a full sort of vlog going around there, but it was just so packed and so stressful. I have a problem with crowds, and that whilst I'm very happy that I got the 12 books I did and the savings I did, it's not something that I'm personally going to go to again, is all I'm going to say. Anyway, let's get on to the books that I did buy. Thankfully, basically all of these apart from one were on my list. My decision to go in there, one you couldn't really pick a book off the shelf, read the blurb and decide whether or not you wanted it, because of just the sheer number of people and the fact that you were moving. You had to be moving constantly, otherwise you were just in the way. So I was if I see it on, I'm oh my god, yes, that book, I want that book, then you just pull it off and you keep going. So all of those, apart from one book, which I'll explain when I get to it, are ones that are on my list and I know about. Okay, so the first book I picked up was Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. This is Trevor Noah's memoir. He is a stand-up comedian. Don't know why I say it like that. But this is about his childhood. I think mostly his childhood, growing up in South Africa with a black mother and a white father during apartheid. So he was literally born a crime because it was illegal to have an interracial couple, like, marriage back then. I kept seeing this in my charity shop and I should have picked it up when I was there, but I mean, like, I got this one cheaply as well, so I'm excited to read this because I don't really know all that much about Trevor Noah or anything like that, so this will be, I think, very interesting to read. I've heard good things about this one. Also, sorry, standing outside in the cold for 2 hours, I now have a cold. I don't know how many times on this channel I've said that I'm not well. I feel like I haven't been well for months, so if I sound like bunged up, it's because I am. Also, please ignore what my friend is doing today. I like washed it and then didn't brush it before it dried, and now this is like what I'm dealing with. The next one I picked up was a man called by Frederick Backman. Third attempt to say that name. From what I can gather, this is about a really grumpy man called Over, and it's sort of like him. From what I can gather, it's almost like, I'm not sure if it's like a day in life or just a few snippets of his life where he's, you know, sitting on a bench, people watching, and his like grumpy opinions on them. And I'm assuming that it's like a more than meets the eye. Maybe he's not as grumpy as he seems, or maybe he learns like a lesson or something. I don't know. I've heard very good things about this, whilst also not hearing a lot about the plot. So, next I picked up Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. Octavia writes mostly science fiction, I believe. This seems like a science fiction book anyway, but this one and Parable of the Sower have been on my list for a while. And, but this one was on first, which is why I picked this one up instead of Parable of the Sower. So, it's a science fiction book set in two time periods in, 1976 and 1815. And it's like spanning generations, I believe, but in 1815, what's his name? You have a slave called Rufus who is able to summon like his not ancestors, the opposite of ancestors down the line. Like, he's able to summon Dana, who lives in 1973, 76. He's able to summon her to like save his life. So it's like, I think Dana learning about the history of her family, where they came from in slavery and all that stuff, whilst being teleported back and forth in time to like save her great grandparents and stuff like that. But yeah, like super interesting concept. Also, one of those ones, like, it's a lovely, lovely cover. Like, a lot of these have just got like glorious covers. This next one being one of those. That is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone. This was like on the list for books we were potentially going to read in my book club, and then it just never got picked. But the concept, I was like, that just sounds so interesting, I just need to read that anyway. This is another sci-fi book that includes time travel. However, this involves two like secret agents on like opposite sides of a time war, and they communicate to each other through letters, and through this they like fall in love, but I don't think they ever like meet because they're in different time periods, and also they're on opposite sides of the time war. And just like the whole concept, I was like, that just sounds amazing. It's also sapphic, so like, again. You'd think from the cover of this that this was like a period piece. This is My Year Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. Moshfegh. I didn't say any of that any differently, did I? But reading the back of it, like, I've heard it was Jack, forgotten his second name. I've heard good things about this on like BookTube, and so basically it's I believe it's about the main character who decides to like just sort of quit her really stressful life for a year and like just go and. This is why I thought it was a period book, other than the fact that like like the painting on the front. I thought it was sort of like hectic life, we're just going to go to the seaside and take in the air and stuff. But this is apparently based in the year 2000. Either way, I know very little about this book other than the fact that I've heard very good things about it. So I was like, I'm going to buy this and read it. The next book I picked up was The Importance of Being Earnest and Other Plays by Oscar Wilde. This is a vintage classic, which is, I think I said before, one of my favourite types of classic publishers. I always think that their covers are really nice. And I saw The Importance of Being an Earnest at the Minack Theatre in Cornwall, which is like this amazing open air theatre on the cliffs overlooking the sea, and it was just amazing. So I was like, oh, I want to read that as a play and also see what other plays Oscar Wilde has read, because I'm more familiar with his novels like The Picture of Dorian Gray. And also because I can't seem to, for some reason, to get my hand on singular Shakespeare plays. Like, they were everywhere in charity shops at one point, and now I can't seem to find any. So for my Back to the Classics challenge, the only prompt that I don't have like a slot fulfilled yet is a classic play. So I'm going to pick one in here, I think. I may, because I know the story of The Importance of Being Honest, I might pick a different one. So I might just go down the list and just pick the next one after that, which will be, I literally just looked at it, but I've already forgotten, which is Lady Windermere's Fan. So we'll see what that one's like. Next classic I got, which was another vintage classic, which is great, is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. This is another one where I'm just like, that cover is just like glorious. They had so many Virginia Woolf there, but I'd never read a Virginia Woolf before, and my rule of thumb is if I haven't read the author, I can't buy more than one of their books until I've read something from them. So because I've heard of Mrs. Dalloway, I decided to go for this one and not the other ones that I saw. So this one, I believe, is like completely stream of consciousness about one day in the life of Mrs. Dalloway, who is a socialite in what year? It doesn't tell me a year. But basically, Mrs. Dalloway, I believe, is a socialite who is throwing a party later that evening, and the whole thing is just her day. So, having never read any Virginia Woolf before, I am interested to see what her writing style is like, and I figured Mrs. Dalloway is a, good enough place to start. The next book I picked up was Silka's Journey by Heather Morris. This is the spiritual sequel, I'd say, to The Tattooist of Auschwitz, which I read 2-3 years ago. I actually listened to Silka's Journey last year as an audiobook and absolutely loved it. And I've been on the lookout to get it as a physical copy ever since, but I could only ever find it as a hardback, and because my Tattooist of Auschwitz is paperback, I was like, well, I'm going to get this one in paperback. So I found it in paperback. And now all I need is the third one, which is called Three Sisters, I think. Which, again, is another one I can only find in hardback. So Silka's Journey is about Silka, who we meet fairly briefly in The Tattooist of Auschwitz. And her story is predominantly outside of Auschwitz, actually. It starts with the liberation of Auschwitz, and because Silka, to survive, and also she just didn't really have a choice, she was sexually assaulted by a lot of the German guards. She is considered a enemy of the state now that they found out that she slept with Germans, despite the fact she would have been killed otherwise. Anyway, so she is taken to a Russian labour camp, and this whole book is the story of her living in the Russian labour camp and then the things that happened to her there. I actually preferred this to The Tattooist of Auschwitz. I still really liked The Tattooist of Auschwitz. But Silka's Journey, I felt, had almost more heart and grit at the same time. And despite the fact that this being a story of a woman in a prison camp, so there's things that happen to her that didn't happen to the main character in The Tattooist of Auschwitz, it's never done salaciously. Because that's one of the things I hate in fiction or history, or just any piece of media, is when sexual assault is written in a way that's supposed to tantalise you or titillate you, and I'm like, this is gross. this was very matter of fact and very, this is stuff that happens, and also sometimes the people that do this genuinely don't see that what they're doing is wrong, and that is like almost worse than if they were doing this maliciously. Very good, very heartbreaking, very like just real. After that, I picked up Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. This one is like one of those that I think is more a character study than anything else, and is about a teen pregnancy that leads to the discovering of this woman's like family history and like the way, like the things that they went through during like the 1920s, okay. So it starts in like the main character, her name's Melody, she's 16, it's 2001, and she, but I don't think it's mostly about her, I think it's about her family, starting from 1921 and coming up to 2001, and all of the things that her family has been through, and I think it's a dissection of like sexuality, class, race, and all of that stuff in lower income homes in America during this time period. So I'm very interested in that, and also it's a really short book. I didn't think it was going to be this short, but I'm interested to see how much they can, Jacqueline can like squeeze into this length of novel. This one is another one that is like, got a gorgeous cover. It's another memoir. This is called Being Lolita by Alison Wood, and it's just like, I know why they're putting like the bubblegum pink on it, but I just like, this is so lovely. Despite the fact that I imagine, with the title and the blurb, that this is not going to be a lovely story. So this is the story of Alison. Yeah. It's the story of Alison when she's in high school. She's a senior. I don't know what that means. Is that the last year of high school? I'm assuming so. Her English teacher gives her a copy of Lolita, and as she's reading it, like, her life almost starts to like parallel it, and it's the way that her teacher is starting to like almost use this book to groom her. And like that is I mean, this is a memoir, so it was a real thing, and that like breaks my heart, but as like a concept of if this was a fiction, that's like such a like, wow, that's a really good like way of paralleling those two things together. So I feel like this is going to be another one of those that's going to be like a hard read, but also a very interesting read, because I've read Lolita. I did not like it. Not because of the subject matter, because the thing is, like, people who have not read Lolita and just know the bare bones think it's either pornographic or like a love story, and like neither of those things is true. It's a story written from the mind of a paedophile, and who is, because you're in his mind and you're reading things from his perspective, he's like trying to justify everything he does, and the fact that like he's saying that it's like a love story, he's in love with this 12-year-old girl. Nabokov puts in enough things like in the background that the narrator like slips up multiple times, and you're just like, yeah, no, what you're doing isn't right. We know this. I think deep down you know this, and we know that Lolita is not like. I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, the character is not even called Lolita. That is what he calls her and tries to make her into. But this is not a conversation of Lolita. I mean, I didn't like that book because I found it rambly. I didn't enjoy spending that much time in the head of such a raging narcissist. Like, that's the point, but I just was like, didn't like it, and there were multiple times in the book where I just had to put it down and just be like, ugh, I can't deal with this man's nonsense. Like, right now he is so up himself. I just, like, I would need to take breaks and just be like, anyway, looking forward to that. Okay, the next book is, whilst it's not the one that I picked up not knowing anything about it, I don't know much about it other than the fact that I know who wrote it, and that's why I picked it up. It's been on my list because I was like, well, it's her new book, I need it, and that is The Survivors by Jane Harper. I don't know if this is from the Dry series, like if it's continuing that one, or if it's just another standalone. Oh, this one's another standalone. Cool. Because I really liked The Lost Man, which was another standalone of hers. Jane Harper is a thriller writer. She writes Australian thriller. So normally, like, the environment is a big character in her stories. So, let's see. Okay, I think this is going to do what Jane Harper does very well, and that is give us a tantalising mystery of there is a body that is found, but then the bit that we're really, like, staying for is family dynamic, which she did really well in The Lost Man. Like, The Lost Man opened with a dead body, and yet that almost became background noise to this, like, family dysfunction that you're trying to pick apart. And this seems to be a very similar thing. Although it feels like it's going to be an opposite environment in that both The Dry and The Lost Man have been very focused on, like, harsh Australian heat and, like, drought and just that kind of extreme. This is based in a small coastal town or village? Oh no, coastal town. A small coastal town which is very reliant on the sea, and that's like, instead of it being it's the heat that dictates how we live, it's the sea that dictates how they live. So this is going to be, it's a person who's returning back to his small hometown and his parents, and then a dead body is found, and you've got to figure out what happened to the dead body whilst also dealing with this tension that's in this person's family, and you don't know, like, why, so I am interested. And the last one I picked up is the one that I knew nothing about, other than the fact that I was in the queue to leave, and the friend that I made in the queue, by the way, yes, me and my friend, the lady that was behind us in the queue to go in, we started talking to her. Her name was Kaz, and she was really nice, and we found her at the end, and we queued together as well. She picked it up, and she was like, "Oh, this looks nice," and handed it to me. I was like, "Do you want this?" Because she was just there for non-fiction books. And, like, the cover, like, oh, amazing. It's Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. And, like, I was just, like, the cover, amazing, I need to read this. And then the first line of the blurb, I just went, I have no idea what this book is, but I need it. And it is, the first line is, magic is a con game. So, like, oh, so interesting. So Spellslinger seems to be about this young man called Kellen who is just about to have his first Mage's Duel, but the problem is that he's lost his magic and he hasn't told anyone that he's lost his magic, so he decides he's gonna, like, con his way through this duel somehow, and then a mysterious stranger, who I believe is this lady here, like, appears. I don't know if it's before or after the duel or what, and offers him, like, a way to escape, get out, find his magic again, not sure, but, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, yes, I think the cover was the main thing that drew me to this, but then the blurb just sounded so interesting, so I'm hoping it delivers on my very lofty expectations, considering the fact that I'd never heard of this book before. That was the 12 books I picked up at the 66 Book Club. It was a very interesting experience, but I'm not entirely sure I would go again. The savings were great, but I'm not sure if it was worth the fact that I now have such a bad cold, or the fact that we were out in the cold for, like, so long. I mean, it is very possible that it was so busy because of that TikTok, and that normally maybe the queue isn't quite that long. I'm not sure, but considering the fact that it is a 2-hour drive and there are other bookshops near me, I will probably, like I said, not go again. But as a concept, 66 Book Club, very good idea, keep up the good work. Yeah, that's it for this video. Have you read any of the books that I picked up? What did you think of them? Did you love them? Did you hate them? Have I potentially just shown you a book that is now on your list? Did you? Were you at the 66 Book Club this weekend? How long did you queue? If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and maybe subscribe if you want to see more from me, but absolutely no pressure. As always, be kind to yourself and be kind to others, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.